came after me, man.
What came after you?
Monsters.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Movieguide, and I'm Jeremy Carroll, and I'm here with David Henrie. We are talking about Monster Summer, which is your directorial debut. What inspired you to do this type of movie?
So Monster Summer, it comes from a very special place in my heart. I feel that there is a massive underserved market out there of people looking for content that won't scar them and that they don't have to worry about. It's a problem when nowadays, when I go to the movie theaters, I have to review everything before I go in. And that's an issue. We didn't have that 20 years ago or when I was a kid growing up watching movies like The Goonie or E.T. or Jurassic Park or what have you. You knew what you're getting into, and there was a value system and an ethos in those films that was just wholesome and worry-free. You didn't have to have awkward conversations after the movies. So I have this burning desire to recreate that set of themes and values for families all over the world. So it was this real burning desire to give families an event Halloween movie that they could watch with people they'd recognize like Mel Gibson and Lorraine Bracco and others. That was high quality entertainment that had a worry-free element to it, and they could just have a good time. Remember, it's the entertainment business. We're supposed to entertain. And you walk out with a nice message. So I grew up on these wonderful movies and shared experiences with my family, and I desperately sought to recreate that for a modern generation. So Monster Summer is a throwback film, but for modern times, about a group of kids who team up with an aging detective to hunt a mysterious foe who's causing chaos on their island. So if you think E.T., if you think Goonies, even more modern films like or shows like Stranger Things or even like Wednesday or Goosebumps, it's that kind of thing. It's a Halloween event movie that has some scares, but it's not scarring. That was a big North Star for me. That I hope families all over will enjoy and get some good messages out of and just have a good time.
Awesome, love it. And let's talk about Mel Gibson and how he got involved with this project. How did that come about?
So I've been a fan of Mel Gibson for a very long time, especially as a young filmmaker myself. I've admired all of his films. I mean, he's made 5 films, I think won 1 Oscar and been nominated for 2 or 3. It's pretty good record. Not to mention the fact that he's a massive movie star as well. So I've been a fan of him for a very long time. This role was pretty much hand-tailored for him. And we sent him the script. We got a response very quickly, kind of a fortuitous situation, if you're going to bring a faith element here, which is true. Like, I was praying about it and really wanted, him because he was perfect. And so right when we made him the offer, I happened to have a friend who was having lunch with him. Mm-hmm. And I saw on my buddy's Instagram, he's literally sitting with Mel right then and there, right as we make the offer. And I'm like, prayer answered. So I instantly text my buddy my director letter that I wrote. So I wrote a handwritten letter to Mel. And I texted my buddy the letter, took a picture of it, texted it to him, and said, hey, show this to Mel. And he showed it to him, and Mel read it. And then literally the next day, Mel reads the script, and we get a message he's very interested in wanting to do the film.
Awesome.
Like, how cool is that that all worked out that fortuitously? And he was a joy to work with. He was incredible. Like, when you do a movie with a big star, especially a star that's been around a long time and has won an Oscar, there's a certain amount of nerves or anxiety that goes into it because who am I to tell someone like this, I'm directing you, It's like, what are you going to tell me, kid? So I was nervous about that. And he came to the table with a humility, with a team player attitude that all those fears just went away immediately because I saw he wanted to help. He didn't even go to his dressing room. Like, we got him this big fancy dressing trailer, like gorgeous. I would live there in a heartbeat, this dressing. It had a 6-burner in it. You ever seen a mobile home with a 6-burner in it? It was amazing. So we got him this great thing. He never went in it. He was on set all the time, just laughing or telling jokes or having fun, because this is such a different role for Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson, can you think of the last time he's done a family movie? Like a movie that's meant for parents and kids to have this fun bonding experience. Mel Gibson has not done a family movie in forever, so this was a different role for him and a role that he was very excited to sink his teeth into because he has kids too. This is perfect for him and his 13-year-old. Mm-hmm. The movie's great. It's PG-13, but it's super light PG-13. There's not a curse word in the whole film. There's no nudity. There's no drugs. There's no awkward conversations after the film with your kids in the car. It's really meant for a family experience, and he's got kids, so the whole time he was FaceTiming his kids during fun scenes, and he gave it his all. It's an old school Mel Gibson performance. I remember there was one particular scene in the film where Mel gets emotional, and I literally prayed for Patriot Mel Gibson, where he gives like this little lip quiver when he's saying bye to his daughter when his daughter's running off. And I was like, God, please give me that Mel in this moment. And he gave it to me. Yes. It was Patriot Mel, and it just like rocked me. He's so stinking good. He's so good.
And not having to have awkward conversations and everything comes with making this family friendly. What were some of the challenges of directing a movie that has horror elements, but you're keeping it family friendly?
Yeah, we're calling it spooky family friendly because horror, I think, comes with like a set of baggage. So we're saying spooky because if you think of fairy tales, right? If you think of grim fairy tales, a lot of them do have scary elements to them, but they weren't empty scares. They were scares for purposes. Like, it's to teach kids that fear exists. And a lot of times in fairy tales, fear is personified by a dragon or by some mythical monster. And what that's trying to do is teach kids that later in life, there will be things that'll hold you back from your potential that you're gonna have to slay. And that's why dragons guard gold, right? Because gold symbolizes to a child a potential power that they could have that they don't yet have. But in order to do that, they have to slay the dragon. So there's an inherent amount of fear that comes with that, and that's okay. As long as it's not empty fear, scares for no point. As long as it's used in a way to teach kids that you should slay your dragons, you should overcome your fears. Because later in life, we're gonna have monsters that we all have to face. Now, as you know, as a parent and as a businessman and a husband, providing for my family, there's monsters I'm slaying every day, and that's just a part of life. That's a part of all of our lives, and that's why these stories are so important. These fairy tale-like stories about overcoming foes are so important, and that ethos was certainly applied to this script and this film. And you're going to walk away with some great messages, some redemptive messages, messages about truth. There's all sorts of stuff baked in here that you'll walk away with some good nuggets and have a really good time, most importantly.
Yeah. And with your faith, how do you avoid like controversy when you like implement some like magical elements into your storytelling? Yeah. How do you kind of go about navigating?
Well, this is a big stigma, I think, in the faith community, is like, you know, because witchcraft is talked about very directly in the Bible, and magic and this and that. And that's obviously the Bible. It's perfectly true and good and honest. But applying that then to art is where a whole other set of circumstances come into play. I mean, Tolkien with Lord of the Rings, C.S. Lewis with Chronicles of Narnia, and the list goes on, all sorts of fairy tales. They employ these mechanisms as a way to teach truth. And a lot of these men were some of the best Christians that ever existed. I mean, the Grimm brothers. So it depends on how you implement it, like anything. The context matters, and it depends on how you implement it. If you're to take a very strict approach, strict isn't even the wrong word, because I don't think the Bible, I don't think the Bible at all would be upset by Lord of the Rings, just because Gandalf is a wizard and there's magic everywhere and there's witches and Chronicles of Narnia. I genuinely believe that God loves those stories because they're powerful vessels to teach truth. I think you got to be careful not to make people, you know, curious about getting involved in things that they shouldn't, or using any real witchcraft or any real stuff in what you make. I think you got to be careful about that. But I think there's nothing wrong with telling fantasy stories, telling fake stories to illustrate greater truths. Yeah, a lot of people who take a hard line on that stuff just shouldn't watch anything, because at some level, everything is fake. So it's all fantasy, so it's not real. And if you're getting involved in things that aren't real, it's like wishful thinking. And if it's wishful thinking, it's magical thinking. And it's just a slippery slope. So yeah, I tend to think it's completely fine to tell stories that aren't true to illustrate greater truths. Dragons don't exist. We know that. But they can be used to teach powerful truths to children.
So with your experience on Wizards of Waverly Place, how did that influence how you went about directing this movie in particular?
So growing up on kids sitcoms was incredibly informative to me. I've been in the business now for 25 years. I started when I was 9 years old. So I think my greatest skill set going into directing this film, which had a lot of kids in it, was the fact that I was a child actor and I understand how to communicate with kids. So I brought that to the table because I had a lot of bad experiences and I had a lot of good experiences. And the key is understanding that they're kids and they're not adults. And kids have different feelings than adults, and they're surrounded by adults. So making them feel like kids every step of the way was really important to me. So not shielding them from all the pressures that were around them and just treating them like they were kids, encouraging them to have fun, to be responsible, to be professional, to know their stuff, of course, but also that they're kids and to treat them that way, and to have kid gloves on was really important for me. And all the techniques I'd learned as a kid actor too, I was able to impart on them, breathing exercises and stretching your voice and knowing where your voice is and how to articulate that, how to enunciate. Things like that I was able to really teach them. And secondly, growing up on sitcoms, you have a keen awareness of blocking and how important blocking is, where people stand, how they move, what that means. That's all a sitcom is. It's like a big play. You're blocking it and you're shooting it with many cameras. So I brought those skills to the table, and it really, by the grace of God, paid off, because we got some great performances out of the kids. And all the kids have gone on to great careers, and they're blowing up right now. So everyone, if you have a teenager, your teens will know the cast and probably have a crush on a couple of the cast members. Our lead boy, Mason Thames, you'll see him next in the How to Train Your Dragons live action franchise. He plays Hiccup in that. And kids will know him from Black Phone, which was a very big movie for Blumhouse. So yeah, and he's the most crushed on kid right now. Mason, hopefully this doesn't go to your head. And then Noah Cottrell, who's in the Spiderwick Chronicles for Disney Plus, is crushing it. Abby Witherspoon, you've seen, she's great. Her aunt Reese, she comes from good stock. Reese is her aunt, she comes from great stock, and Abby's a force unto herself. And Julian Lerner, who's in Zombies for Disney Plus as well, is incredibly talented. So we got like a great cast of kids, a great cast of adults that the adults will recognize, and hopefully a fun co-viewing experience.
With the overall message of the film itself, what do you hope families will walk away with?
I have a quote that I really love, which is, "Evil only wins when good men do nothing." And that was very much an ethos in this film, because this film is really about a boy who knows something is wrong on the island, and he's a young journalist, and he wants to shout the truth that there's something wrong and we need to solve it, and everyone around him is telling him, no, it's fine. There is no evil here. This is a safe place. Evil doesn't exist. Stop looking for a kid. So you have this relativistic approach, and then you have this kid who believes, no, there's objective truth out there. I see it. I'm calling it out. I'm trying to get to it. And it's a battle of these ethoses in the film. And ultimately, you walk away with I think a really good message on the film. I don't want to ruin it. You got to watch it. But I was very aware of what's going on under the surface all throughout the making of this film, and trying to steer things in the right direction. So.
If you enjoy videos that follow your values like ours, and you want to help us continue, go to movieguide.org/donate, because we're actually a nonprofit. You may not know that, but we're working in Hollywood every day to help families have more choices that follows their values. And also subscribe right now.